Well, let's jump to the SEC West, where you got Mississippi State, number 7 in the West, toughest division in all of college football. And hell, man, if they would have had a good offense last year, this would have been one hell of a team. But it was kind of the reverse of what we were expecting. The offense struggled, the defense was great. What do you see from the Bulldogs this year?
Yeah, for sure. And really, when you talk about Mike Leach's offense, and he says it himself, it's all about reps, 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 and that's just doing these same pass concepts 1,000 times in practice for timing and for spacing and the whole bit. So when spring practice was knocked out and summer and most of fall camp was knocked out, and he was transitioning schools and rosters, you kind of saw the writing on the wall that it was going to be a bit out of sync. Now, that opener against LSU, that was just incredible. But after that, it really slowed down the offense. What I did is I looked back on his two recent head coaching stops at Texas Tech and Washington State and looked from year 1 to year 2, what kinds of gains of efficiency they had given the extra year of reps and practice. And what I found is they're adding 11 points per game. So from year 1 to year 2, they're going to add 11 points per game on offense and add almost 100 yards passing, too, per game. But most importantly, they're adding their touchdown to interception ratio goes way down, which is going to be crucial for this offense if they want to take the next step. They finished just 110th in touchdowns to pick ratio. It was almost 1-to-1, which is not very good, obviously. So if they can hold on to the ball a bit more and work on that timing, I think this offense takes the next step. Now, here's the issue being in the SEC West is I think they're going to make a major jump statistically and on the field, what you watch, the whole bit. But is that enough to keep pace with this division? I don't think it is. I mean, I really struggled putting someone 7th in this division. I think it's the best in college football. I even have them number 40 overall, Mississippi State. So that gives you a picture of how strong this whole division is.
Yeah, and with defense struggling across the board in college football last season, how impressed were you with Zach Arnett bringing that 3-3-5 defense to Starkville, and just how impressive that Mississippi State defense was? They don't have the talent of a lot of these other SEC teams, but they held their own, and they really were the stars of the show down there last season.
Yeah, they really did, especially when you factor in some of the off-the-field quarantine stuff they had to go through. They missed a lot of schedule or a lot of practice reps, and a lot of starts and contributors were out. So given that and the scheme change going to an outlier scheme like the 3-3-5, I think it's only played at a few schools nationwide. So to be able to install that overnight with a lot of backups was very impressive. Mississippi State, they improved in 13 of 14 out of my defensive stat categories, but most importantly rose into the top 5 in my opponent adjusted per play percentiles. And I know that sounds boring, but basically they were a top 5 SEC defense last year. And they're in kind of a unique situation for 2021 where overall as a defense, they return a ton of production and starts and stats. That's because a lot of guys were in due to quarantine and they got a lot of ahead of schedule reps for young guys. So they return a lot overall, but they do lose 4 big stars at the top of the roster, multi-year starters too. So it's a push and pull between you lose 4 great guys, but everything else is all back and experience. So we'll see. Yeah, I was very impressed in his debut.
Well, all right, number 6 in the East, you got the Auburn Tigers, and I've taken all kinds of hell for putting Auburn 7th. Let the people know that why you and I are so low on the Auburn Tigers this year.
Yeah, well, I think we were on the same page last year with Auburn. I think we were a year ahead of this. We caught that one where I think the AP poll had them in the top 15. I didn't even have them ranked. Mm-hmm. And I think you kind of echoed those sentiments, I believe, on Twitter. Either way, we were proven right. For this year, again, I hated putting these teams so low in the division. It's just such a crowded division. But, first with the Gus Malzahn transition, it was always tough. I mean, he set the bar so high in 2013 with that miracle season and the miracle of Jordan Hare and the kick six and, the run all the way to the national title game. He set it very high, the bar. And from there, it was, the next 7 seasons were all 4+ losses, or some were 5+ losses seasons. So, it was tough. I mean, they were kind of stuck in a tough spot there, especially sharing the state and sharing the rivalry, the Iron Bowl with Nick Saban. It's just almost an impossible situation. I mean, heck, he went 3-5 against Saban. That might not sound very good, 3-5. The rest of the SEC is 3-61 over that same time frame. So, I mean, it's just all relative. I mean, I think he was an excellent coach. It's just when you're compared against the greatest ever, it's going to be tough. So, Yeah, so transition-wise, the offense looks completely different. So where it was all shotgun and it was a lot of quarterback run and optionality from the Malzahn offense, it's now a very traditional throwback type, smash mouth offense with Brian Harsin coming down from Boise State. Kind of a misconception with Boise State. People nationally just think of the Statue of Liberty and some trick plays. This is a very physical, run first offense, and it's going to be a lot of pre-snap motion and formation shifts, and but really just a power run game. It's going to be under center, which I don't think they've been under center at all under Malzahn. So it's going to look a lot different. It might take a year to really transition. And defensively, real quick with the defense, I loved Kevin Steele. I thought that he was incredible there for years. And this one might be another heck of a transition going from his 4-2-5 scheme over to Derek Mason's 3-4. So, so given all those factors, I think that they take another step down, and they'll be around 6th in the SEC West.
Now, week 3 of the season, they travel to Penn State. And maybe you and I are both dead wrong about Auburn, but if we are, I think it's got to start there. Pulled off the upset on the road. That's another one of your top non-conference games in all of college football next season. Auburn at Penn State. What can you tell us about Penn State and just the challenge that Auburn's got going up on the road and facing 100,000 strong in that stadium?
Yeah, big time. I mean, I'm based out of Pennsylvania. I'm not a Penn Stater by any means, but I'm around a lot of Penn State people, and I'll tell you, they've been talking about this game for a while. I think they're dedicating it as the whiteout game of the year, and if you've seen Penn State at night, it's the entire stadium, 110,000 wears white, and they're crazy. Mm-hmm. It's one of the toughest atmospheres in college football. So, and specifically to Penn State's roster, it's a really strong defense. They're changing their offense up a bit. They're going to be airing it out, kind of like the transition Georgia went through, bringing in a Big 12 coordinator and Big 12 passing offense. So all I can say is they're fired up for that matchup. It's rare to get an SEC team up in Pennsylvania, and I'll just say they're going to be ready for it. So it's a good measuring stick for Auburn.
All right, number 5 in the West, you got the Arkansas Razorbacks. Sam Pittman digging that team out of the cellar. How great of a job did Sam Pittman and his coordinators, his coaching staffs in their entirety do last year with this team?
Well, yeah, they were incredible, and I was really pulling for Sam Pittman in Arkansas because every year I see these guys, these national writers, they run over to Twitter, they make fun of certain college, coaching hires, like they were all laughing at the Pittman hire. But I was saying, and as I always say, hey, give him a year or two. Let's see his coordinator hires. Let's see how he can recruit. Let's see how his schemes work out. He can never write off a coaching carousel hire right away, and he proved me right. He hired 2 excellent coordinators there with Kendall Briles on offense, Barry Odom on defense. Of course, SEC fans know him from Missouri, the way that he turned the SEC worst defense at Missouri into a top 3. The same thing happened here. Arkansas was one of the worst defenses of the last 5 years, and you could see huge developments on defense, and it's all coming back, a ton of returning production on defense. Long story short, you see their 3-7 record, and you might not, think much of it, but when you dig into those games and you look back on some of those game tapes, they really should have been 5-5. 2 of those games, I mean, the Auburn game was a botched call at the end where there was a backward spike fumble, and even the refs admitted they had blown the call. They would have beaten Auburn. And then LSU also, they had LSU on the ropes on the eventual game-winning drive. They stopped them, but there was a targeting penalty, and you can argue if that was incorrect or not. I think it might have been incorrect. So you're talking they could have been or should have been 5-5, and that's a huge accomplishment given their recent pass under Chad Morris. So it's all back except for Felipe Franks, who is the perfect guy for a transition season. But now you have a couple running quarterbacks, and Briles is already starting to implement more RPO, more quarterback design runs. So I think this offense might look a little different for the better even. So much skill at the skill talents, or so much talent at the skill positions, I should say, and a lot to like. And then the last bit real quick is, of course, Sam Pittman was an offensive line coach. That was his MO. And I've read that they added an average of 30 pounds of muscle to each of their starting 5 linemen over the past offseason. So the Hogs are beefing up, and they're going to look strong.
Hey, sounds like Cousin Shane over there. But, hey, week 2 of the season, they play Texas. What can you tell us about how Arkansas matches up against the Longhorns?
Yeah, it's an old Southwest Conference matchup and now a future Southeastern Conference matchup. I think it's cool seeing those two. I mean, they're They're close proximity-wise. That'll be one of the better SEC matchups that we like to see each year going forward, given their history. Yeah, it's very interesting. I think with Texas, they're going through a transition coaching-wise, quarterback-wise, losing Sam Ellinger, their multi-year starter. He did everything for them. We'll see. I mean, that's a great opportunity to get a marquee victory over a likely ranked, I call them a helmet team or a blue blood team. I like Arkansas's chances there. I think that place is going to be rocking. Really their first big home game in a long time where, it's not just a huge underdog scenario. They're a legit competitor this year. I even thought about them going up as high as 4th in the West, but still 5th in the West, number 28 overall, and nearly a top 25 team themselves. I like Arkansas a lot this year.
All right, next up in the West, you got Ole Miss Rebels, number 4 in the West. And I thought Florida's game grade was off whack till I got down here to Ole Miss. 86% on offense, 2% on defense. Oh, my God. I mean, train wreck caliber here in Oxford. How tough of an out is Ole Miss going to be next season as long as they can improve that defense?
Yeah, so starting with the offense, that's what really everyone loves and what I love about them. You saw it there in Lane Kiffin's first season, the way that he tags every play with a run play and a pass play, a lot of optionality, really just make the defense wrong every snap, and we saw it play out. Matt Corral was basically perfect all season. He had 2 hiccup games. I think against Arkansas he had, I think it was like 6 interceptions or something. But overall, it was an incredible season by him. He finished in the top 3 of most my metrics, most of my passing metrics. He's up there with Sam Howell and Spencer Rattler from Oklahoma as the top 3 quarterbacks for 2021. So, I mean, incredible start there when you look at this team. Great duo running back with Snoop Connor and Jaron Ely. They do lose their 2 top pass catchers with Moore and Yeboah gone, but they've built a nice stable there. They also have a nice legacy at receiver, a nice lineage, how they keep reloading and sending guys to the NFL. So I like them there. There's firepower, and 4 of the 5 offensive line starters are back. But, just the offense alone is only good enough for 5 or 6 wins, but really what moves them up the ladder in the SEC West for me is the developments on defense. They really hit the middle of their defense hard. They added not just number 1, but number 1 and number 2 junior college defensive tackles there. So the center of their defense is fortified, I think. They started to play better defense towards the end of the year. You saw that. They held Indiana, a top 10 team, to their season lows in the bowl game. So I think they're making progress on defense, enough to be a more balanced team and a legit top 25 team.
Number 3 in the West, you got the LSU Tigers. And before you dive into your thoughts on Ed Orgeron's latest team, tell me, how tough was it to pick between LSU, Texas A&M, and Alabama? Because I think these 3 are neck and neck.
Absolutely, these 3 are all proven. The way they recruit, their staffs I like, and we'll get to LSU's in a second here. But for context for the listeners, this top 3 was so tough. I have them all in the top 11 nationally. So I've got Alabama, I think 5th. A&M 8th, and then LSU 11th. So these are all amongst the top in the country. If they were in any other Power 5 division, they'd probably be the predicted winner. So with LSU, I've been telling people, I hope you got your jokes in last year. I hope that you got all your Twitter memes and all your jokes in, because that was the all-time transition year. We've never seen one like it. Losing, I think it was 14 draft picks, the Heisman winner, both coordinators, or at least the pass game coordinator. So much was gone. We kind of knew a transition was going to happen in 2020. It was worsened by a couple bad coordinator hires, at least defensively with Bo Pelini, and the offense didn't click to anything near what we saw in 2019. So all of that's behind them. It was a very young roster last year. All of that is back now experience-wise. They're a top 5 recruiter every year. I think they've found their quarterback there with Max Johnson. It was a predicted quarterback battle between 3 guys. I know one guy transferred out, and I think that what Johnson brings better than Miles Brennan is his ability in the RPO game. And I think you're going to see a return to that. You're going to see a return to what worked in 2019 by his hires at offensive coordinator, bringing in Jake Peetz and DJ Mangus, both guys that worked with Joe Brady himself on the Carolina Panthers offensive staff. So they're looking to reinstall what worked here in 2019. I think they'll get there. Really overall as a theme with LSU, when you look at each position group, it's just incredible the amount of talent that is stockpiled. And now that all that talent is a year more experience and developed. So I think it's a legit team.
And how do they match up in the season opener? going on the road to UCLA in the Rose Bowl. What can you tell us about the Bruins and how they potentially match up against LSU?
So the last 3 years under Chip Kelly, they have been really they've been a pushover, I guess you could say. They never really grew into what he had built at Oregon. But what I'll say is this is their best team he's had. We started to see him fix two of the issues. So the main issues with him the first couple of years were at quarterback, the turnovers and the destructive plays from quarterback, and secondly was the defense couldn't stop anybody. But last year in 2020, he fixed both. Dorian Thompson-Robinson in his third year as a starter, he cleaned up the turnovers, he avoided sacks, and the offense took a major step. And then secondly, his hire, bringing in Navy's coordinator to revamp their defense, bring it more blitz happy, attacking, aggressive. They forced turnovers, they confused the opposing offenses, and they really took a step on defense too. So it's a more complete team than you're used to from UCLA. I actually have them near the top 25 nationally, but I still like LSU with all that just stockpile of roster talent and five-star guys. I think LSU gets it done.
All right, number 2 in the West, you got Texas A&M, and I know they love you down there in College Station. You're on Texags every week of the season. What do you see from Jimbo and the boys this year?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been harping on this for a couple of years that A&M really is a sleeping giant as a program. They have all the fundamentals. The one thing you can't change is your location. I mean, right away they're located in the Texas football hotbed. The other things that take longer and longer to develop are things like conference affiliation, stadium size, facilities, the fan base, the passionate alumni, the booster money. I mean, hey, all that, it sounds like an SEC program, right? So they've really fit the mold. The thing that was really holding them back was coaching. They signed Jimbo Fisher. They made the investment there. The recruiting has followed, and of course, it's inevitable. The wins are going to follow. So last year, while most had them third or fourth or fifth even in the SEC West, I had them second, and that held true as they posted their highest ranking since 1939. And when you look towards 2021, first on defense, 9 starters are back. I know that losing Buddy Johnson and Bobby Brown are two of their best players from last year, but still with 9 guys back, I love that. The secondary is very veteran and loaded there. Offensively, they do lose Kellen Mond, a 3-year starter, and 4 of 5 of their linemen. If you remember, that offensive line was a candidate for the Moore Award, and in my numbers, it reflects it as well, that they were top 15 both in run push and pass protection, the only team out there to do that. Now, they do get their best guy back along the offensive line, Kenyon Green. And really, I think this is the key question with A&M. If they hit on a quarterback, if this Haynes King comes out and is incredible, then they can really move up towards playoff caliber. If not, I still think they're strong enough defensively and at their offensive skill positions with guys like Weidermeyer and Anias Smith to really and Isaiah Spiller too at running back. So even without a transcendental quarterback, I think they're still in that 8 or 9 win range and top 2 in the SEC West.
So, of course, that leaves just Alabama, number 1 in the – what is it about the Crimson Tide that makes you think they're going to win the SEC West this year?
Yeah, so they've just had such a proven run of reloading their talent. They're one of those that send so many guys to the NFL every year, but one of the few staffs that has proven they can reload almost every year. And this isn't really anything earth-shattering to the listeners. Everyone knows Nick Saban's track record. So I think they've built up enough stock recruiting-wise. And their defense, it looks like they're going to be defense first, at least in September, to start the season for the first time since like 2015 or so. So there's a lot of proven production there on defense. I think it was just enough that until proven otherwise, they're my pick to win the SEC West. Although the difference is I didn't take that next step and put them automatically back into the playoff. I think that their transitions on offense, losing 3 Heisman candidates, no one's ever gone through that. No one's ever had 3 like that on the same offense. 2 All-American linemen up front. And then 6 NFL first-rounders. So and the offensive coordinator too, calling plays. So it's a lot. It's more than usual for a transition team like this. Now, with that said, there's just 5 stars everywhere. I think it's enough to gel into a conference or at least a division winner. So it's kind of I'm stuck in between. I have them winning the division, but not good enough for the playoff right now as it stands. And of course, this team could gel and mold into their normal Saban machine come December. But as it stands right now, I like what Georgia has. Experience-wise and roster-wise compared to what Alabama has on paper right now.
Any concern that they're on upset watch here, week 1 against Miami and Atlanta, or is that just a ridiculous question to ask?
I just don't see it. I know it's a boring answer, but I've seen on Twitter that's a trendy upset pick, or I even saw a couple of people putting Miami in the playoff. I don't know. I mean, when you look back at what made Miami great last year, there was two pieces. One was quarterback with De'Ara King, and yes, he's returning for 2021, although he's coming off of a massive injury and surgery there after the bowl game. I think he's still like questionable for the opener. And secondly, what made them incredible was their defensive end and outside backer pass rush. And they sent three guys high in the NFL draft. They're all gone. So there's a lot of transition there. They're changing defensive coordinators. I don't know. I just don't buy it. And I think right out of the gate, especially given Saban, what was it, by that point, 9 months of film prep and game prep, I think Alabama is going to smack them.